Yeah, whatever.
Just like in Fesh Pints, an iconic video made by a YouTuber named Dyke, I was a big-eared freerf today. I explored my discovery queue on Steam in hopes to find the next big open-world experience relative to Stalker Anomaly, a challenge that I personally feel is impossible. I've obsessively discussed Stalker Anomaly on this channel, and only recently went over the 3 original games in my Stalkerthon series. Stalker this, Stalker fucking that. I might as well be a stalker and move to the Chernobyl exclusion zone just so I can slip into a radiated puddle of water and shit my intestines out a week later. I find the overall series to not only be interesting, but dark and mystical in a very eldritch horror sort of way. Stalker is the king of this in video game terms, with the Metro series coming in at a close second. Anomaly is just another layer of icing on the overall cake that is the series. I still have yet to play Heart of Chernobyl, so I can't comment on that. Now, you're wondering, what the fuck does any of that have to do with Project Zomboid? Ah, well, you see, Zomboid is another game I've covered a lot on my channel. It's an isometric survival horror open world game in the style of an N64 top-down arcade game, only it's designed in a more claustrophobic and intense scale. Often when playing, you're going to die. The point of Zomboid, I'd argue, is to die. There's no end game and the zombies won't stop hunting you. It's a horrific experience only meant for the most patient gaming minds in the space. A question that nobody ever asked was, what if we merged Project Zomboid with Stalker, and the end result was something far more boring and uninteresting than I would have imagined. Tunguska the Visitation is an isometric generic Unreal Engine asset flip with some colorful sprinkles on the surface to trick the buyer into thinking they're getting a unique open world experience. That's not the case. There are a lot of things that I'm going to cover here, so fair warning, I'll be cursing a lot, I'll be yelling, and I'll be pissing and shitting. Prep yourselves, headphone users. It's about to be a wild ride. I can't imagine a more weird concept. Combining Stalker and Zomboid as one is something I never thought I'd witness. Tunguska takes place in a very similar place as Stalker, desolate and abandoned with only the miscreants of mankind left to inhabit the broken world. The way that the developers have set up the Steam page leads me to believe that it's an open world experience that has the same quality and content as Stalker. So, you came here to find out the truth, right? Well, why the fuck should I start sugarcoating now? The game sucks. It's exactly what you'd expect from an idea like merging 2 great games and somehow expecting a better result. No, enjoy one or the other. Plain and simple. That's not the major complaint though, so let's move on. The game seemed really interesting, and I'll admit, I had it on my wishlist over a year ago with the intent to play the hell out of it, and I've only just now gotten the chance. It was gifted to me as a Christmas present from my fiancée, Kat. So, as a huge thank you to her beautiful self, I shall seek forward the damages of this train wreck and analyze them with my caveman gaming takes. Unfortunately, Stalker fans, I'll come right out and say it to your face. This isn't going to be a healthy alternative, and it isn't anything like those titles. I mean, first of all, why are these generic asset NPCs that are supposed to be integral to the supposed plot designed with such awkward profile pictures? They look like something an indie dev would leave in the files as a joke or a behind-the-scenes look into development. These people do not assist you in any way, shape, or form. They want to give you dirty work for you alone to attempt and complete, nothing more. What game did a better job of the Stalker Anomaly? Of fucking course. In that game, every NPC you encounter is dynamic and can be asked to help with favors in return for a reward. Some NPCs, no matter how big or small in reputation, will speak to you and join your side in the fight so long as you do good by them. That is dynamic A-life gameplay. Tunguska has very linear bullet point gameplay that makes me believe it isn't even remotely close to what it advertised itself as. I mean, I thought I was getting an open world ripoff of a beloved series. Instead, I got exactly that, but minus the open world. There's no free roaming, and barely any safety within the fake zone that they've designed for this shithole. The reason I say this is because of how difficult and long the tutorial section feels. No matter how many quests I completed for these fucking assholes in the beginning village, and no matter how many times I went through the story's plot points, I couldn't leave this village. I couldn't figure out how to get to the supposed open world aspect. Here's a big red flag for Stalker fans. You don't even fucking fight mutants. What? Isn't that the whole point of ripping off of the one game you're clearly ripping off of? Your enemy roster will mostly consist of generic zombies that the game refers to as Tunguska ghouls. And, come on man, wolves. Have we really descended so fucking far back in our intelligence that we've started using wolves as an enemy? What's next? Rats? There are some special variants of ghouls, like the Scythe. Real clever name, I guess. They're no different than the others, besides having giant knives glued to their forearms. It's a clunky, unfair, and very tarnished piece of media. Though there are a few good things in Tunguska, I feel as though this might be my one and only visitation to the series. So let's dive in. Every great franchise seems to have its respective ripoff. Whenever a property becomes extremely well liked and praised by the gaming community, chances are competitors will do what they can to make a cheap knockoff version just to bank on all the hype for themselves. We've seen this happen time and time again with Left 4 Dead, fucking PUBG even. This was most prominent for me with StalCraft, a free-to-play game that you all know I discovered on Steam that ripped everything from Stalker, but made it 10 times worse and cranked the difficulty dial all the way to the fucking right. It was a ridiculous game in my opinion and a giant waste of time. But apparently children enjoy it. Thanks to Stalker, we now have an outstanding shining example in the survival horror genre of open world games. It can't be beaten, period. Sure, you have games that are similar, but nothing compares to how free and truly immersive Stalker feels whenever you play it, although it is still a tough experience at times. For now, I'll give you the basics. What can you expect when diving into this simple game? If you're a major fan of Stalker like I am, you're not going to be disappointed right off rip. Tunguska feels like a rewarding experience very early on, especially with its in-depth written tutorials and journal mechanic. I like the graphics to the game. It doesn't try too hard to overheat my PC, and it looks and runs good, with a solid frame rate on a pretty standard build. The character animations are a bit clunky, and the camera controls take a little getting used to, but overall it gave me a decent first impression. Though it tends to get really frustrating at times, there's plenty of things I want to cover throughout the course of this little editorial. Tunguska most certainly represents the traits of a Stalker ripoff, and therefore I believe it deserves a review from the respected eyes of a true veteran. It's fun enough in the beginning, and sometimes it grants you a lot of leeway, but after a while you suddenly come to the realization that the entire game is just a lazy snorefest with poor design and no replay value. I mean, look at the main menu. Does this look fucking familiar? Tell me, what does this honestly remind you of? Stalker? Gee, what gave it away? For starters, the game is generous by offering some basic supplies at the start. Searching the houses in the beginning village will benefit you with food, med supplies, some ammo, and even a crowbar, which can be used as a melee weapon and a tool for prying doors. Pressing the left Alt key conducts a forward kick that can break down weak doors and loot crates that are normally left out in the open of most areas. You won't find much in these crates, but you'll find enough to sustain yourself a bit longer. Your main enemy type in this game is going to vary, but it's not nearly as vast as you know what. Sometimes you're fighting these zombie creatures that don't resemble any other one from the Stalker series besides, I don't know, bloodsuckers, I guess. They're generic looking vampire creatures. Why would I ever be intimidated by this? That's like shitting my pants because a child showed up on Halloween dressed as the Grim Reaper. They're tedious to fight. Of course, this is one of those games where the hit detection should be referred to as shit detection. You can't tell when your hits are landing versus when theirs are, you can't avoid them, and the lock-on controls are crap. There's no strategy, there's no skill involved. You click until you win the fight or you die. You're not allowed to rotate the camera while in combat mode, which is extremely frustrating. If you're using a melee weapon, you have to use the mouse wheel to rotate the camera. Why they didn't just go the Zomboid route, I have no fucking idea. Oh boy. A puzzle, huh? Leave it to the shitty game bingo card. Everybody start checking off shitty, unfair, and complicated puzzle on the list because this game is full of them. It took me forever to figure out this one where you have to restore power to this camp by fixing the pipes or something. But the UI is so horrifically fashioned, it makes for a more annoying experience when trying to navigate and look for the proper way to go. They try to give you riddles to solve for this garbage? No fucking thanks. I'll just look it up from some other sucker. Kinda wild that they're charging $10 for the game in my opinion. Need I even mention that Stalker Anomaly is a free-to-play experience that can be downloaded at any time? No, because I say that all the fucking time, especially when I review these. Project Zomboid is designed a lot better too. Look at the difference between the zoom levels and overall control scheme between these two. Side by side, it's fucking night and day. The example on the left is a good way of designing an isometric angle while giving the player complete control of their character movements and implementing a neat inertia mechanic that works both in your favor or against you at times. Tunguska's camera sucks a fucking duck's nuts. Your only two zoom options are leaning slightly forward in your seat or not doing that. The dynamic movement is a negative here because your character moves so stiff and acts as nothing more than a rusted android struggling to act human. As for customization, there's nothing major to write home about. You can find different armor sets in the world, I guess. You can't find different clothes, though. The story? Oh god, what's the fucking point? It's a shameless ripoff of a beloved franchise that tries too hard to sound like Stalker's writing but lacks the charm and doesn't capture life in a decrepit wasteland like it's supposed to. These NPCs aren't voice acted and they don't care about you at all. They just want a lackey to do the dirty work as an excuse for you to progress. So, in Tunguska, a massive event known as the Visitation occurred. It's an emission. I'll spare you the trouble and just directly compare it to Stalker. It's an emission. They also have anomalies, but in this game they're known as distortions. They're not really that threatening to the player and can easily be avoided so long as you aren't sleeping. And like I said before, there's a lot of bitch work. The game doesn't shy away from that. They flat out tell you this despite continuously helping the lazy ass characters with tedious work. Funny how nobody else ever seems to leave this village or assist another person in need. It's just a convenient excuse for the player to take on majority of the action. Well, I'm still in the middle of this shitty village, but suddenly I have to help them with a bandit problem. At the next location over, there's a barn where the renegade assholes can be found and attacked. Right away, the game demonstrates how fucking horrible the human combat is. Enemies can laser you in seconds, if not quicker. You, as the player, can only see things that are right in front of you. This is supposed to mimic Zomboid's much better eyesight mechanic, limiting the player's view at the start due to their poor senses. In that game, this can be upgraded the more you play, but it isn't fair in Tunguska because the moment you gain even a smidgen of their line of sight, the armed enemies put you down faster than the deputies did to Sounder in the Armstrong novel. Shitty games are known for doing this, and it's something I've come to expect for years diving in the dumpster bin of Steam. But what the fuck is this? You call this fair? I completed some side quests and unlocked some cool guns, but what's the fucking point if I die in 2 shots? Everyone else has armored, bulletproof leather jackets and coats and shit. But you only get a dinky vest and helmet. If that, there aren't any stashes to loot for better gear, so you're fucked. The AI is wonky too. I can sneak right up behind these assholes and blow them away with a shotgun and they won't notice me. Thanks, idiot. Now I'm gonna kill your buddy over there too. Oh, never mind. I forgot that the game is fucking terrible. My bad. Sounds that should be apparent throughout the game aren't, creating a false sense of stability in the player's confidence level to finish the shit show they're currently imprisoned with. You don't get any UI selection sound effects for the sake of aesthetic purposes. Kind of pathetic to have a creative looking inventory menu that doesn't feel interactive in the slightest. It's more like a mobile game ad popping in to remind you that it exists. Inventory management isn't hard, it's just not designed very well. There's no automatic sorting by category, leading to a jumbled fucking mess of overstimulating icons that will fill every box and tick you off until you break and eventually just sell 98% of your shit. Everything you pick up just throws itself into these molecular-sized boxes that I don't even bother rearranging. What's the point? There is a way to store your things in a safe, but it has limited room. That's bullshit. Stalker allows you to have a personal storage that you can put an infinite amount of items inside, which makes for a really convenient play experience. This is lazy, and it only discourages me from exploring and collecting important things I may need just to bring it all the way back to the starting camp. That's something that I really don't have the patience for. What's with these poorly thought up quests anyway? Who wants to play a game where the opening quests consist of fighting broken shitty dogs or collecting shitty flowers? Finding gasoline tanks to start a generator? I hopped into this supposed open world experience with the expectation that it would be, oh, I don't know, open fucking world? But no, it's just chore after chore. Maps are useless. I say this because the game itself has no problem spilling its guts to you about that. The only time you'll open the map screen is to navigate the very small, boring atmosphere of each subsector. You'll do this twice, and then, frankly, never need it again. It doesn't tell you your exact position, where to go, stash locations, item locations. Nope, none of that. It says the location of the individual spots you can stop at, and that's it. Not that there's anything interesting in these subsectors that you unlock or anything. They're carbon copies of the locations from Stalker. I mean, Jesus Christ, guys, look at this. This is the fucking Cordon Village. And that's clearly supposed to be the military checkpoint. but it looks like a cheap 3D fever dream. It's horrible. Oh god, the melee combat is holy moly. If I had the perfect word for it, I'd use it here. But I fucking don't. Just look at it. It's like watching a homeless man after 3 Jägermeisters. The hit delay is awful, and enemies always get the advantage in this situation. You're rarely able to hit them first, let alone hit them at all. It's just pure luck if you win a fist fight or not. I know I said this before, but it remains a consistent issue. Same with the firearm combat, honestly. You'll never be fast enough to react in time, not even if you have a fucking cheetah in your family bloodlines. It's so funny how they shoot you with the same shitty pistol and rifle that you're using, but theirs is insanely powerful and accurate. I really don't understand why these devs throw so much difficulty at the beginning segments of their games. There's no need at all for the game to feel this unrelentingly difficult. It's cheaply designed to purposely work against your favor with little to no acknowledgement of how to inspire the player to get better. Are you shocked that I haven't made many good comments regarding this putrid piece of trash? Don't be. It's not a very good game, and it's certainly not worth your $10. But, as I promised, I want to try and find something worth a damn inside of it. I do like how plentiful guns and ammo are, but this is negated due to the poor combat. Finding the strongest guns and armor won't matter if your character dies in 3 or 4 shots, and it's not going to do you any favors when everyone else is essentially a John Marston bullet sponge. God, these locations are so boring. What am I honestly supposed to do in these empty, lifeless worlds that the game tries to pass off as maps? It's not like you can find stuff around the area like caches or different articles of clothing. There's no interesting decorative scenarios placed anywhere. Like, come on, not even a fucking skeleton or something? No abandoned backpacks or rucksacks? You couldn't just throw together a few neat little campsites or encounters to come across that made the world feel more alive and genuine? Doesn't help that our character is stuck in a perpetual miasma of slow movement. Even at full sprint, you move so goddamn slow it's like watching a geriatric man at a marathon. In this lifeless void of a game, we aren't granted the luxury of Stalker's very alive universe either. Instead, we get the generic formula as always, where enemies, loot, and story characters don't span all across the map, but rather spawn in particular places of each subsector. It's fair that once they're killed, you don't have to worry about them respawning, but that also makes the game all the more boring when there's nothing left to fight or do while you're traveling in between these areas. Imagine if Stalker didn't have the A-Life system, had 2 types of mutants, and insanely powerful enemy AI. It would be a miserable experience that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Playing Stalker Misery while sitting on a chair made of knives, covered in gasoline with a lit match dangling above my head would be far more exciting and entertaining than Tunguska. Alright, I suppose it's time to give it the one compliment I can think of off the top of my head. Once you unlock the proper requirements, you'll receive a Garrote tool that can be used to stealthily take down unaware enemies. Sorry. It's called a strangler. Who wrote this? SpongeBob? Anyway, the strangler will allow you to very slowly walk up to an enemy and kill them without alerting half the fucking continent. It takes a long time to suffocate someone, so you have to time it just right with the predictable enemy movements. It's really nice to have this option because gathering guns and supplies is fucking ridiculous otherwise. Try attacking these assholes in the daytime or head on, and you're begging for an ass whooping. I gotta say though, it's pretty effective going in stealthily. Having the option to kill them and steal their loot without being noticed is really handy. But you know what else tickles my rage bone? The fact that everyone looks hideous. These aren't custom-made assets, they're generic Unreal Engine models with plastic Mr. Potato Head facial hair and rosy red cheeks. Again, Stalker shows very realistic and sometimes creepy title cards for each person you'll talk to, but those actually work. This is stupid. It's like they took a generic camera app and snapped a selfie of their half-assed faces. I almost wish it were AI-generated slop. At least then it would look like someone put effort into the design. The game is very weird with how it introduces the player to certain mechanics. For example, Razor is the leader of the rookie village. If you want to unlock stealth killing and learn more information about body armor, you have to pay the fucking guy. So I have to cough up some cash in order to get some basic knowledge? Garbage. But if you're someone who isn't interested in reading the lengthy and stupid text from the characters, You can't even flash through the words without penalty. I was trying to skip through this dialogue because I didn't give a shit about it, and then suddenly I got transported back to the village against my will, and 400 rubles were missing from my account. That's so good. I'm so glad that the game doesn't want you to skip through it, and it wants you to read the shitty, awful dialogue. The idea of looting the environment is absent, and you don't really have to worry about that anyway, considering every time you complete a quest, the trader will more than likely reward you with something really great, like, look, I got a pump-action shotgun, a scorpion, a double barrel, a few grenades, and some body armor. So what the fuck is the point in exploring this environment, in going to different areas, when all I have to do is just complete the main quest line and I unlock all of the best shit? I forgot to mention that one of the main characters is named Dr. Sidor. Really? Kind of reminds me of Sidorovich from a much better and more familiar series. I always love when people defend these Stalker ripoffs, stating brainless things like, "It's not supposed to be Stalker, you idiot, it's not even close to that." Well, if that's the case, then why the fuck does this look like the Rookie Village? Why did they steal the first half of the most infamous trader's name from that game? Why do you use rubles as currency? How come there's a bandit faction known as fucking Renegades? Case in point. The dialogue system is fucked, and I know I said that before, but let me go more in detail. Why are all of my options stuck to the right side of the screen when the text itself is centered? It's so fucking confusing. To further this effect on your mind, they place more options in the bottom of the screen in order to expand the dialogue and give you sensory overload. I hate games with poorly designed menus the most, because what good is the overall game when I can't even figure out the fucking basics of your UI? You're allowed to harvest materials such as flowers or vegetables from their respective spawns, and eating is the only way to heal your character. Your energy is heavily limited, so you need to make sure you sleep often with a full stomach if you want to recover. I actually do like this mechanic, considering it's the only survival implementation I've found. You can cook raw food gathered from mutants and animals, but the process is stupid. You'd think you could just put the meat on the grill and fry it up, but no, of course not. You need to know the recipe, which tells you the exact temperature you need to set in order for it to work. If you select raw meat and attempt to cook it on anything other than the right option, it'll spoil and waste itself from your inventory. How the hell does that happen? That'd be like if I made ramen noodles, but the water evaporated instantly because it isn't boiling the second it touches the fucking stove. I kinda just figured putting raw food on a hot grill for a few minutes would cook it, but your caveman character doesn't know how to do this without the proper knowledge. Sorry, man, I have been dumping ass on it left and right. I should shift the attention towards something more positive. There's a neat thing implemented here where the further you progress, the more stories you have to share with the editor of the company you work for. See, you're not a native to Tunguska, you were actually hired to come here and report interesting stories for money. That's basically how you get paid, aside from quests. I kinda like how you have to call Mary whenever you discover something worth sharing to the world back home, and you can sometimes get paid very well for specific information. I had fun with this idea, so I thought it was worth mentioning. I didn't know this prior, but there's also an upgrade tree. It's nothing flashy, but it's unique that you get so many points upon leveling up, which allows for the player to make concise decisions with their build. Combat skills like guns and weapons of that sort are on the left, while survival experience is on the right, both with their respective perks. This kind of thing makes Tunguska feel like a role-playing game. Not even Stalker implemented a skill tree in its original works, and though it might not look great, it works just fine for me. Everything else doesn't. It's confusing to navigate the boring world, and there's no real open world exploration at all. The story is uninteresting, which is the biggest flaw of any RPG. Not being able to invest myself properly in this world that you've created due to the countless issues I've mentioned previously creates a sense of hypnosis where you'll be counting sheep more than counting your bullets. There are a few good mechanics here and there, but it's nothing that other Stalker clones haven't done. Or I should say it's nothing GSC Game World hasn't done before, because they're the ones who fucking made Stalker. I appreciate that they tried to put some effort in a few areas with the upgrade system and decent loot pool, however it's not enough to keep me invested in it. Tunguska tried way too hard to be two video games at once, and failed to capture that magic potential for me. It's very boring. It feels like a dumb grind that just isn't worth it. I recommend you give it a shot if you really want, but for the love of God, wait for a sale. Better yet, play Stalker Anomaly. No need for me to drone on and on about it. We all know what the fuck to do. Just download it and play it. I'm happy I don't have to suffer through another weird minute of this madness. But yeah, that was the end of Tunguska. I could think of so many other things that I could have
done today. Like, so many other productive things. I could have done the dishes today. I could have wiped my ass like I'm supposed to. I just could have done something way more productive than talked about this fucking game. So now what the fuck am I gonna do?